Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another rainy episode of Monuments Monday. And today, we're at a place called Alumni Park or Unity Park on South Baltimore Street, a few blocks south of the square of Gettysburg. And at the time of the Civil War, we are actually standing inside what would have been a house owned by 63-year-old Samuel McCreary. And of course, during the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg, the Southern Army overran the town and occupied the buildings here at the edge of the town. The Northern Army fell back to Cemetery Hill beyond us, and for 2.5 days, the Southern Army occupied the town, and it was a violent sharpshooter action here at the edge of the town. And you might know that at the Gettysburg National Military Park, and prior to that, at the Rosenstiel Gettysburg National Museum, there was a table on display with a bullet hole through it. And you can still see this on display at the current visitor center. And according to the original tag that was on the table when it was at the Rosenstiel Museum, the bullet that passed through this table killed John Poole, or Cole, a young Louisiana sharpshooter in the house of John McCreary, 426 Baltimore Street, Gettysburg. Poole had entered the house, since removed from the front of the present Gettysburg High School in 1951-1952, pushed the table to a doorway opening south, and while kneeling behind the table and using it as a gun rest, was shot through the chest by Union snipers who probably spotted the puffs of black powder. After the battle, Mr. McCreary and a neighbor wrapped the body in a blanket and carried it out to the lane and buried it and marked the grave. Dora Weinbrenner, who lived nearby, later Mrs. Swartz, a girl of 16 at the time, saw the body carried from the McCreary house. After the war, Poole's parents came to Gettysburg, were directed to their sons' graves, and had the remains moved to Louisiana. The table was purchased by Frank Rosenstiel at the McCreary sale in 1878 and was handed down to his daughter Margaret, from whom it was obtained for the Rosenstiel collection in 1955. Fascinating story about this table. And Samuel McCreary did live here at the time, not John McCreary. And when I first researched the story and traveled to the National Archives, the nominal list of casualties for Hayes's Louisiana Brigade are available at the National Archives. And sure enough, Corporal William H. Poole, Company F, 9th Louisiana Infantry, 21 years old at the time of his enlistment, was killed in the fighting here on July 2nd or 3rd in this sharpshooter action. Just a fascinating story. One thing I should mention is that, of course, this is where the Louisiana Tigers made their attack against Cemetery Hill on the evening of July 2nd. And there is a map, the Elliott burial map, that actually indicates that there were 31 bodies buried here along the Weinbrenner Lane, which is the old Baltimore Turnpike, on that map. And it's one of the places in town where Southern soldiers were known to be buried. Of course, most of these soldiers were undoubtedly men who were killed during the charge up Cemetery Hill, not in the sharpshooter action as William H. Poole was. But after the school took this over, it's a nice open piece of ground leading into what was then the Gettysburg High School and now the Gettysburg Middle School. And in 1996. This was opened up as a park referred to as Alumni Park. It was dedicated on June 8th, 1996. And it really was a part of the Gettysburg Historic Pathways Project, developed under the guidance of Main Street Gettysburg. And a monument was placed here to honor the schools of Gettysburg. And there's a wayside exhibit that talks about the local schools in our area. In the 1830s, 5 or 6 schoolhouses were built in and around the town for the students of the borough. In 1857, a school was built on High Street in Gettysburg, and it was a consolidation of all the children in the area. And this monument behind us, which would be number 40 on our count of monuments, markers, and tablets in the town, has in it the original bell that hung in the High Street schoolhouse. Of course, over the years, there were many different locations where our schools were located in and around the town, but this is still the entrance to the complex of Gettysburg schools, even though the main high schools now moved to another location. To assist in raising funds for the Alumni Park project, bricks were sponsored by high school graduates. And I think it's great that they put their year they graduated from high school on the brick. And I see here Harold Small, who was a licensed battlefield guide, who graduated in 1945, and B.J. Small, who was the editor of the Gettysburg Times for many years, and of course Cindy Small here, one of my good friends, who's the award-winning author of the book on Jenny Wade. Now, number 41, as part of our count of monuments, markers, and tablets in the town, is the monument here in what is now referred to as Unity Park. So there was an Eagle Scout named Andrew Adam. He was 14 years old, and he was a student of the Cumberland Valley School District in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. And he was working on an Eagle Scout program, and he was a Civil War reenactor that portrayed a drummer boy in the Pennsylvania Reserves. He was very interested in drummer boys and musicians during the Civil War. And he was able to raise money, and a local sculptor, Gary Castile, who had sculpted the monument to General James Longstreet on the battlefield a few years earlier, he was able to get him to cast a monument to a drummer boy with materials used from the North and the South. And the monument was dedicated on Sunday, July 5th, 2015. And again, this is one of the dedication ceremonies that I attended. And at that time, there was an American flag, in pole placed here in the park. There were 36 bushes placed to represent the 36 states that were in the Union at the end of the war. And of course, it also, you come out here in the summer, and oftentimes there's state flags besides the different states that are represented on the bushes. And at that time, when this monument was dedicated, Alumni Park was renamed Unity Park. And I don't know how the school district or the community feels about it. Perhaps this section of the park is Unity Park, and the other section of the park is still Alumni Park. I'm not sure about that. But it does have an address of 1 Lefevre Street here. Now, I just wanted to mention that you might know from my program a few weeks ago at the Adams County Historical Society that my great grandfather was a drummer boy at Fort McHenry, and on my mom's side, my great grandfather was a drummer in the 2nd Michigan. Of course, he was in his 40s. I have never been a fan of the drummer boy mythology. And I guess it's because being a tour guide and taking thousands of people on tour around the battlefield and talking about the Civil War every day, one of the biggest myths of the Civil War is that Civil War soldiers are young. I think I heard someone say at the dedication of this monument that 1/5 of all Civil War soldiers were under 18 years of age. I'm not so sure about that fact. As a matter of fact, the Civil War is the war in which the average age of the soldier is the oldest. We had younger men joining the Army, but we also had a lot of older men joining also and serving. And the American War, in which the youngest age soldiers fought, undoubtedly, is like Vietnam. Everyone is really young. But this concept that the Civil War armies are filled with really young soldiers and that young soldiers are dying all over the battlefield is just not true. Drummer boys are sent to the rear before the fighting starts. Now, occasionally a drummer boy is injured or killed. Like at Antietam, there was a young boy killed behind the lines when an artillery shell exploded, a young drummer boy. But there are not drummer boys marching with the columns in the charges on the battlefield. It's absolutely just not true. And it's one of the most irritating things that I hear constantly about the battle, all the young kids. I think some of it has to do with middle school groups coming here and the desire to have the middle school kids associate with the battle by making the soldiers their age. That's my take on it. You want to learn about young people in the battle? How about all the children that lived in the town of Gettysburg while the battle was raging around them? Of course, I might be a little bit prejudiced here because that's what we highlight in our museum, Gettysburg Beyond the Battle. If you like the content that we've been putting on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe.